You ever been peed on before?
Once?
I recently went and watched the Resident Evil Netflix series not too long ago. Don't worry, I'm not gonna make a video on that pile of shit, but if you want my opinion on it, I can safely say that it sucked fucking dick and there's no motherfucker out there who could tell me otherwise.
Bro, chill.
But even though the show was fucking garbage, what it successfully did was made me want to talk about Resident Evil.
Resident Evil.
Fondly enough, Resident Evil was my first introduction to the PlayStation 1. I was only a young-ass lad at the time, without any real awareness of video games outside of shit like Sonic the Hedgehog. And then you got this brand new game that's drastically different from the usual shit that I had been used to playing. I'd seen gore before with games like Mortal Kombat, but never would I have imagined ever seeing a game with badass shit like a cutscene with some fucking dude smoking a stogie and a bunch of people with guns. That shit fueled my American boy dreams to great heights without even knowing what the fuck the game actually was in the first place. The 3D environments and all that shit was crazy as fuck at the time. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was so used to seeing simple ass stuff. It didn't take long before my ass would see some dog smash out of the fucking window and cause me to shit myself before turning off my friend's PlayStation without saying a single fucking word. It wasn't until years later when I finally finished Resident Evil 1, but being able to say that I beat the game was such a badass kind of feeling. Looking back on it now, Resident Evil scared the fucking shit out of me as a child. It probably sounds dumb as hell talking about it, but back then, there was less exposure to shit like zombies and all that. The game had a creepy ass soundtrack to coincide with tight corners and limited views. And then there was the footstep sounds of the zombies with horrifying faces and outfits covered in pixelated blood. That kind of shit was fucking intimidating to me as a young bastard. But like I said, nowadays we've seen all sorts of horror games and zombies and all that shit to the point of being desensitized to it. Fuck, I mean, they're so overplayed that when I see a zombie in any kind of media, I just react to it like it's any other thing. It doesn't make me feel anything anymore. It's just kind of there. It's like zombies went from being this super fucking terrifying thing to a normal generic enemy that I honestly couldn't give a flying fuck about. Regardless of that, however, I still have a fond appreciation of the Resident Evil series and would go on as far as to say that it's honestly one of my favorites. I have fond memories of basically all of them. The one that comes to mind the most, however, is the Resident Evil remake. And even though I was admittedly a fan of shit like Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, the Resident Evil remake was always the most nostalgic memory that I had of the Nintendo GameCube. The game was fucking incredible and still stands out as one of the better remakes out there. And even though some shit in the game hasn't aged too great, I can safely say that the game is still special to me.
A second late, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich.
Really?
Putting that aside, I felt like it was worth putting my own 2 cents into the examination of Resident Evil. In short, I've played the shit out of Resident Evil Remake, and yet going back to replay it for this video, I was honestly surprised at how much shit I'd forgotten. I could still recall bits of the story, but not really everything. But what's really to say at this point? We all know that Umbrella was the bad guys now. It's not much of a fucking spoiler. However, what I grew to appreciate more was the amount of bits of information to help provide additional details of the game's story. It isn't just repetitive collectible bullshit that you pick up and forget about almost immediately. Something about the details stand out now more than ever. Like this fucking note, for example. Itchy Tasty. Here you have the gradual degradation and turning of some fucking dude. Shortly after, you see the zombie turned son of a bitch pop right out of a closet. It's this kind of shit that makes Resident Evil kind of mysterious when you play through it for the first time. There's intrigue to the surroundings and all this shit going on. Yeah, zombies, ooh, whatever. But there's something about this kind of shit that helps make them feel like a little more than just fodder. And then there's the design of the mansion itself with the enemies. You know how I said that zombies are overplayed earlier? Well, Resident Evil Remake does a really good fucking job at making them stay somewhat scary. You can hear moaning in the footsteps, but aren't exactly sure where the fuck the son of a bitch is because you can't turn your camera around. To some people it might sound kind of annoying, but playing through the game again for the first time in years, I felt that it helped build up an extra level of tension that I didn't really get out of playing Resident Evil 2 or 3 remakes. I know those games are still pretty fucking great, but the ability to have a better view of your surroundings make them feel less intimidating when you're not necessarily surprised by shit happening. It's the grotesquely designed pre-rendered backgrounds with tight-ass corridors and fixed angles backed by the dark soundtrack that help the player feel more anxiety. But even with the quality of life updates in some areas and the creepy-ass soundtrack, there's still flaws that have become far more apparent with with time. Take, for example, the inventory management. I know this is gonna piss some people off, but hear me out. It's fucking annoying to have to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to dump items and clear a fucking room. Sometimes it can be even more annoying when you leave shit behind and it's all the way across the fucking mansion. And to add more to the frustration is having to see the fucking door loading screens constantly. Shit like this sucks fucking ass now, especially after you've been exposed to the seamlessness of the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. As someone who has OCD up the fucking asshole, I feel like I spent hours upon end dumping items and then returning to previous areas just to pick up stupid shit that I'd probably never use, like a fucking blue herb. How fucking helpful would it have been to have a key ring or something else to help clear up some of these spaces? But even with the annoying and ridiculous shit, it somehow works in the game's favor. Choosing between holding a necessary item to solve a puzzle or an herb to heal yourself is the difference between life and death. Holding all those fucking keys is great and all, but what happens if you need to plug a shitload of zombies and burn them up so they don't turn into crimson heads? This brings me to my next point of conversation for the Resident Evil remake, the combat. When you start the game, fighting shit can feel extremely fucking tense. Ammo feels scarce and you don't really want to waste your healing items taking unnecessary bites. And then you have to worry about asshole zombies getting up after you kill them, thanks to the added feature where zombies can turn into crimson heads if you don't plug them with a headshot or burn them afterwards. These motherfuckers are basically aggressive ass zombies on steroids. But on the flip side, once you kill a crimson head, they're done for good. However, you don't really want to see them at all, so it's best to be as conservative as possible with your shit and use your resources wisely. Other than that, the enemies are mostly what you'd expect from the original game. You got the hunters, dogos, spiders, but then there's shit like the sharks and the bug-like motherfuckers. Needless to say, there's a lot of fucking shit that can kill you if you aren't on the ball, so wasting ammo early on can be a beginner trap. It doesn't really help that the aiming in the Resident Evil remake can flirt between the lines of sucking complete ass or sucking fucking dick compared to the precise aiming in the modern entries. This could be the difference between wasting ammo or taking a hit or two if you aren't really careful. Summing this entire video up, there isn't really much else to say that hasn't already been said. The Resident Evil remake is a fucking great game that made a memorable one even more special. And for a game that's basically 20 years old, it's still pretty fucking effective with a lot of the horror aspects. In short, the Resident Evil remake is a monumental piece of gaming history. It built on the original game without sacrificing anything, continued to be effectively creepy with tense ass shit. There's some obvious issues that have become more apparent because of the improvements of the other remakes, but that shouldn't be a detractor to what the original remake accomplished. Even if the other remakes are more playable, there's still something about this game that's worth coming back to. And even though some aspects of the game are kind of shit now, it's still better than having to put yourself through watching that fucking shitty ass Resident Evil Netflix series.
I don't.
It's a joke.